you wouldn't do it. But as far as the universal claims go, that men should never leave their women destitute, that's actually not true. There's many cases where if a man leaves his woman destitute, you would actually agree with that. Is that right?
Big Coffee does things their way, but San Francisco Bay Coffee is different. We work hands-on with our farmers to ensure sustainability and boost productivity so they can grow the finest beans. And that's the way we do things. San Francisco Bay Coffee.
Taxes was feeling unwelcome. Now Taxes is an open door, literally. The new TurboTax stores. Meet our experts in person. They're ready to do your taxes for you, so you can walk out with confidence. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax.
I hate to say agree, because part of me is kind of like, there's just something about it that doesn't feel right, but.
Well, then it's a claim universal?
Yeah, no, it's not a universal claim. It never was a universal.
So then there must be like some agreement there somewhere, right?
I could understand why someone would do that, and I would not really be able to condemn them for it, even though it may not be a choice that I personally would make for myself.
So then it's not immoral for them to do it, and you wouldn't actually have a problem. I mean, what would the disagreement there be then? Just ick? Like, it just kind of gives you the ick? Is that the totality of the disagreement?
I wouldn't characterize it as the ick. I just don't like to see people have suffering inflicted on them. But at the same time, I'm like, well, actions have consequences. And if you want to go and like bang your husband's brother, and like, can you really blame him for just slamming the door and walking out? I like to think that people could be adult about these things and still come back and say, like, yeah, obviously we can't still be in a relationship together, but can we just be mature and amicable about the division of assets and so on and so forth?
Well, maybe we can take it one
I know
step
a lot
further.
of people can't do that.
And I'll ask you a different question. Is there instances in which leaving the woman completely destitute would likely actually be good for her?
Yeah, possibly.
So then, if there's
some people
cases,
do need to hit rock bottom in order to change.
so then if we can agree that there's circumstances in which leaving them destitute would be good for them, then wouldn't the morally righteous thing to be to leave them more destitute?
Yeah, potentially, if it's getting into a scenario where your support is going to enable them.
So then it sounds like we have no ought for why you shouldn't leave them destitute, but we do have at least some oughts for why you should.
Fair enough.
If that's the case, I think you got to revamp your position and say that there's cases where men ought to leave their women destitute, which would be the inverse of what the debate prompt is, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Well, I will happily take that as a concession on part one, and we can move into part two if you'd like.
I mean, I don't know that I would say like he ought to do this. I don't, as a general rule.
Be the inverse of what the debate prompt is, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Well, I will happily take that as a concession on part one, and we can move into part two if you'd like.
I mean, I don't know that I would say like he ought to do this. I don't, as a general rule, I'm not big on telling people what they should or should not do.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year, like 11 months early, which takes you from the worst ever to the best ever. What do you mean?
I'm big on guiding principles. Make your decision according to those guiding principles. But when it comes to like what actions are you going to take, if somebody comes and asks me for advice, should I leave my wife destitute? I mean, well, what are the circumstances? even if he lays out a really good case as to why he should leave her destitute, I would still come back and say, well, I can't really tell you what to do. You have to make that decision for yourself. I'm not going to put my stamp of approval on it, is what I'm saying, one way or the other.
Yeah, but why not? Like, if you would think that this was a good thing, it'd be the same thing. Like, I could give you examples, perhaps, of a child who is inside the house. They're a grown child, right? They're like 16, 17, and they often steal from their parents or something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
By having the child there, continuing to allow them to steal, you are actually enabling that behavior, right?
Yes, you would be.
Yeah, you'd be enabling it. So I would see it as a moral ought to say, well, I think it'd probably be a good idea for you to stop allowing them at 18, 19, 20 years old, when they're adults, to continue to come into your home and victimize you. And it's through that exercise of boundaries that they perhaps will learn their lesson that they're not allowed to do this because of the enablement. I can make the same case on women who are promiscuous or perhaps routine cheaters, that absent the consequence of them actually having serious repercussions for the behavior, they have no incentive to change that behavior. You could even make the case with men if this is the case, right? If that's so, and I think we'd have to agree that it is, how could you actually say we ought not do that in those circumstances? Because it seems to me like we ought to do that in those circumstances.
In some extreme circumstances, maybe. Like if the person that's asking for some financial support is a drug addict or something, and you know
Sure.
that all the money you give them is just going to be poured into their drug habit, that's inevitably going to lead them down a terrible, terrible path.
So if you had a junkie wife, leave her destitute.
Yeah, like in a case like that. But again, these are extreme cases where the answers are a little bit easier, and most people's relationships are not. I think most breakups exist more in a gray area.
Look, I agree. I'm going to give you all the olive branch I possibly can. I tend to agree with you that these are more the edge cases than the commons, though I don't think that the blindsiding the men with divorce is an edge case. I think that that's actually fairly common. But that aside, leaving that aside, when it comes to the idea of I believe that men should support women they're no longer with, and then the qualifier is, well, based on conditionals. If I can give you sufficient conditionals in which it would actually behoove the woman to be left destitute, then that seems like it would cripple this entire position, because you would be saying then, no, there's circumstances where you actually ought to do that, and that is the most moral thing to do, right?
In some extreme circumstances, yes.
Yeah. So then I don't think we even need to go any further with that. The case in the proposition of should men leave their women destitute, the conclusion is to this, sometimes, right? Sometimes, at least.
Maybe sometimes, but
Sometimes.
I would say not in the majority of cases. And
I'm actually even willing to engage with that. I'm actually even willing to engage with whether or not it should be done in the majority of cases. So if it is the case that everything is done from you through the prism of perspective ethics, or the ethical purview of, I'm guessing, what you think is what is moral or what ought to be done, is that the case? There's no universals you ascribe to?
I do subscribe to certain moral universals, just not necessarily in a case like this.
Not stance independent ones, though?
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words, create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough. Feeling a vibe? Run with it. From can't look away to gotta have it. Make every detail yours. Bring out what's hot. Remove what's not. Crystallize it. Instantly set a tone that speaks in your voice to your audience. Keep moving. Your site grows with you. Add solutions that meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. Smooth to make, easy to love.
Sorry, say that again?
They're not stance independent? Like you're not basing them on anything other than your own personal stance?
A lot of it is based on my personal stance, sure.
Yeah.
A lot of my position on this is based on my perspective of the world, how I would handle things, how I have handled things, the expectations I've had of partners that I've broken up with and so forth. And I realize that most people don't engage on that level. I realize that a lot of breakups are really nasty and that a lot of people don't have the emotional maturity to split in an amicable way, even in the face of like some kind of a betrayal or something like that. So I recognize that on the one hand, the standards that I have in my own life are maybe not applicable to everybody or even reasonable for everybody. And I didn't.
Well, I'm actually willing to just engage as is with the stance, and instead of trying to beat you up on whether or not I think the meta-ethical or metaphysics or anything, is consistent, that can be a very boring debate. I'm actually just kind of willing to grant the stance for the purpose of the argument. So if it is the stance that most of what you would consider an ought or things like this, or most of what you consider to be moral is not stance independent, but basically comes from you, my guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're looking for kind of the best social outcomes for people, right? That's
you can put it that way.
Well, that makes sense to me, right? I think that in almost every ethical system, it's really hard to get away from the fact that we're still trying to look for good social outcomes, and all these ethical systems are driving kind of towards that in their own way, right? Would you kind of grant that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make a different argument now based on the majority claim, the claim that the majority should. I would actually believe that socially, the outcomes for society over the long term would be better if more people left the opposition destitute and they had to deal with the consequences of the failed relationship without the aid of the state and without the aid of court enforcement, which would then provide aid. They'd actually have to work their problems out and things like this. And I actually would argue that that would probably be better for society, ultimately.
Yeah, I'd actually agree with that. I'm not a big fan of the court system. I think a lot of the pushback I got on this was from, men who kind of perceived me as advocating for, what they kind of call divorce rate or something, which isn't the case at all. Like I'm not, I'm very anti-state in that regard. And I think if there was not the ability to just kind of take your problems before a judge and get greedy lawyers involved and everything, like, you
would have to actually deal with the problems, right?
Yeah.
So then now it seems like we have actually an ought against even the majoritarian claim of destitute. Like most relationships, you shouldn't leave the other person destitute. Isn't it actually true that if in the majority of the cases people were left destitute and the aid of the state wasn't coming in to kind of push that person up, that they would actually have to deal with these problems alone without that social safety net? They would probably actually have to start working those problems out. Wouldn't that actually be a really good counterclaim against the claim of even the majority here?
I don't know that it's necessarily a counterclaim because it kind of implies that I was suggesting that people use the state to achieve these ends, which is not a claim that I ever made.
No. Hang on. Let me qualify.
Go ahead.
I don't believe that you ever made such a claim, but I do believe that that would be an entailment of the claim. So I think that it is an entailment of the claim when you're talking about leaving them destitute and why you ought not do that. That if I'm saying, well, socially, I think that the ramifications of doing that would lead to better social outcomes, and you say, well, I tend to agree because of the court system and things like this, then that would be an entailment of that position, right?
I suppose you can characterize it that way.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's the case, then I think I've made a really good argument for why even in the majority of cases, I wouldn't even grant that you shouldn't leave them destitute in the majority of them. So on the conditional cases, we've now agreed. And now in the majority of cases, I think we've even found some at least common ground. I know you don't fully agree perhaps, but I think that I've made a more compelling argument here against that claim than you've made for the claim.
Well, I don't think we ever were really in strong disagreement to begin with, so much as there just being a misunderstanding and mischaracterization of my posts.
Which is fair. That's totally fair.
Like the prompt, should men take care of women they're no longer in romantic relationships with? I mean, that wasn't even a claim that I made. It was never like men specific or anything. It was just like, if you break up, try to see that your partner gets back on their feet. You know, don't leave them homeless. Don't force them to move back in with their parents. If
There's
they gave up a job or something to.
There's a lot of conditions I agree with, especially when you have kids involved. There could be concessions you need to make, which are moral on behalf of the kids, things like that. I agree that conditionally there's going to be some cases where that's the case. The crux of our disagreement comes into whether or not it is the case that you actually mean men should do that. Not really. You mean in certain cases they should, and there's others where they actually ought not. And then we moved into, but I think in the majority of cases that they probably should. And I think that we demonstrated even in the majority of cases that probably still wouldn't actually be the better ought socially for society, at least based on your and my worldview.
I don't think.
Whether you're looking for service on your existing garage door or opener, or you need a replacement, call Dave's Garage Doors, where our dedication to old-fashioned value and workmanship ensures your complete satisfaction. On each visit, we'll completely check your system and make any minor repairs and adjustments. For any make or model, trust Dave's Garage Doors, serving the Portland, Salem, Vancouver area since 1981. We're big enough to count, but small enough to care.
Need to run Windows on your Mac? Parallels Desktop makes it simple to integrate Windows apps into your macOS workflow. Install Windows in minutes and stay productive without hassle. Run the apps you need when you need them with full compatibility with the latest macOS and Windows. Get the best of both worlds. Download Parallels Desktop today.
I don't think that that's necessarily true in the sense, like, yes, we agree that it would be better if people just work things out on their own without the state, and you know that may even solve some relationship problems. But I think at the point where one person has decided to definitively leave, the question isn't so much about whether or not they work it out themselves or get the state involved. Like, what orientation are you going into this with? Are you going into this split with a hostile, combative attitude that you're trying to win and that you're trying to come out better than the other person if you want to see them crushed as much as possible because you're mad and hurt? Or can you put that aside like a grown-up and just treat the other person with respect and dignity, like regardless of how you're feeling, and just be like, this is a fair division of assets. Given what you've sacrificed, given what I've sacrificed, how can we make this as fair as possible? Oh, you gave up a career and you've been financially dependent on me. Well, how much support do you need until you can be financially independent? Can I pay for training for you to get a job? Do you need your rent paid? Do you need help in relocating?
I understand all of these conditionals are fine, but it's kind of a restatement of the argument itself, which is, sure, there's many conditionals which we would agree upon in which a man probably has some social obligation to not leave his long-term spouse who didn't do nothing, not socially destitute. But if it is the case that we're actually looking for better social outcomes and to disincentivize ultimately toxic or horrific behavior in society by allowing an enablement of court systems in the state to act as the divisionary arm which artificially supports this bad behavior, then it would seem to me that socially it would actually be a better worldview to say, no, even if you're with a rotten monster and he leaves your ass destitute, right, and that's the way it is, I think that human conditional behavior would change very rapidly in how they did mate selection and also in how quick they were to pull the trigger on getting a divorce. And so that would be kind of my compelling argument that I would make back, that I think you'd have to concede likely true.
Yeah, I don't think we're in disagreement on that.
Okay. Well, then I think we've gone as far probably with this proposition. And by the way, this is not to beat up the proposition. It's vague enough as it is. I understand that there was a lot of us talking perhaps past each other when we were on Twitter and things like that. But now it's at least clarified. So, if that's the case, I'm actually happy. I wanted, when I saw the second debate prompt, I was really actually very excited for it.
I thought we might need a second one because this one just seemed too narrow, and I was like, I think we're probably just going to agree on most of it.
Yeah, so I was actually really, really happy. I got very excited. I was like, yes! So somebody has some philosophical
So you're
training.
eager to move on.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to find the common ground there and move into why feminism is men's fault. If you guys read, like, I'm happy to listen to the entirety of the argument. I just got my notes here, and I'd like to go through it.
Okay.
If I was gonna say, if you want, we can kind of reset. If you'd like to give maybe a statement or so on that philosophy chat and kind of kick it off. You don't have to if you didn't prepare for it, but
A statement on which?
like in for the feminism is men's fault.
No, I'm prepared. That's my homework. Do you need to read your super chats or anything like that?
No, ma'am. We will get to those later when we're all done.
Okay, so,
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do It Yourself by February 28th. Download now.
Big news, Mint just launched Home Minternet, 5G home internet for $30 a month. And once you've got it, you're gonna need a new Wi-Fi name. Couple suggestions here. The Fast and the Unlimited. Too fast, too frugal. Wi-Fi and furious, really good deal. Mint X, for savings. Unlimited 5 gigahertz, ride a router. Router or router, I'm Canadian. And my personal favorite, Minternet 30, Vancouver Drift. Not available in Canada.
men are to blame for feminism. So I'll begin by stating that I recognize that this prompt is quite provocative, but it's a good debate without spicy positions.
Those are my favorite.
Yes, it's everybody's favorite. So my position is this. Feminism is not primarily the fault of women. It is the consequence of men abandoning their spiritual center, and therefore only men can fix it. So I'm not speaking of individual blame. In this, I'm not pointing to the men in the audience saying, this is your fault, guys. It's not what I'm saying. I'm not excusing female responsibility for their own individual actions. What I am addressing is a metaphysical pattern. So the breakdown of cosmic order as it manifests socially. And for
Do you mind clarifying just very quickly on what cosmic order means?
I will get to that. So,
okay.
I'm going to need to define some terms, I think. So I'm approaching this from a traditionalist perspective. So for anybody who's not familiar with capital T traditionalism as a school of thought, this isn't anything to do with nostalgia for the past or cultural customs or values from previous eras. That's lowercase t traditionalism. I'm referring to the primordial metaphysical worldview that is then shared across all great civilizations and spiritual traditions, that there is a metaphysical order that is prior to and superior to the material world, and that this order is the source of all true principles, values, knowledge, etc. So this is the divine cosmic order, basically. Think of being in alignment with this order as being in alignment with God's will, essentially. So to understand the problem of feminism, which I do believe is a big problem, we must begin not with ideology, but with ontology. So in every sacred tradition, man and woman are not merely biological categories, but metaphysical archetypes. Man corresponds to the active principle, to form, to being, the shaping, ordering, directing force. And woman corresponds to the passive principle, to matter, to becoming. She's a receptive, fertile, and dynamic substrate. And these two principles, the masculine and the feminine, this dichotomy is the root of the structure of the cosmic order, and they're not unequal, but they are distinct. So one gives the form, the other receives form and multiplies it. So the masculine is associated with stillness, essence, transcendence. In Hinduism, it's Purusha. In Taoism, it's the luminous and inward yang. In Aristotle, it's the unmoved mover. In Neoplatonism, it's the nous. It's associated with the sun, which generates its own light, and it holds an ontological preeminence over the feminine principle. Now, the feminine is the active matrix of all conditioned existence. It's the pure potency without direction. but it is capable of generation and vivification. So think Shakti in Hinduism, the yin in Taoism, the corrosive waters, the bride and the power. She's associated with the moon, which means she generates no light of her own, but can only reflect what she receives from the sun, from the masculine. So to use an analogy, think of lightning and the lightning rod. The lightning represents the feminine, right? It's powerful, it's radiant, but it's chaotic and unpredictable. And the rod represents the masculine, who draws that power down and grounds it into a usable form. So without the rod, that lightning just dances aimlessly and sometimes destructively. And with the rod, it becomes electricity. So energy gets ordered into purpose. So when we talk about the roles of masculine and feminine, we're not just talking about social constructs. We're talking about metaphysical laws. A person is physically male or female because they are masculine or feminine in an ontological sense. It's a mode of being that corresponds to a particular type of existence. You know, we can only experience existence as men or women. So when I speak of feminism, I'm not referring to political movements or cultural trends, but to a deeper disorder, a misalignment between essence and function. And so feminism arose not because women suddenly became rebellious for no reason. It arose because men abandoned their spiritual center. There is no disorder without a prior collapse of order. A society is then stable when the masculine governs, but not governing through brute force or a monopoly on violence, but through a collective grounding in that transcendent authority. And when man ceases to embody form, when he becomes passive, disordered, and oriented toward the material plane, then the feminine cannot harmonize with him. He's occupying her space. He's contributing to the chaos, and there's nobody providing a stable axis to orient around. So the feminine will then, and women specifically, will then rise to dominate him out of necessity, or they collapse in on themselves, and both of those outcomes generate this disorder. And that's what feminism is at its root. It's the feminine acting without form. It's the lightning striking and starting fires because there's no rod to direct it. So in traditional terms, this is gynocracy, this is matriarchy, women having power not because they seized it, but because men vacated it. And so feminism has emerged because men have failed in their masculine vocation. And so again, I'm not trying to pin blame on individual men, because everybody was born into an already decadent age. Everybody's been propagandized like this since birth. I don't believe most men could have stopped it. I see this path as inevitable. It's a necessary course of decline.
Guess who just got a raise? Spoiler alert, it's me. Thanks to Free Tax USA. With free federal filing and super low state fees, it's like getting a bonus for doing your taxes.
Yeah, it's the free game. Skate.
A wise choice today will bring rewards tomorrow. Huh. Must have heard about Free Tax USA. And because I filed early, my tax refund just became my travel fund. More money in my pocket means more stamps in my passport. Free Tax USA, the bonus you didn't see coming. Visit freetaxusa.com today, where your maximum tax refund is guaranteed.
Just part of the structure of reality. But the reality we live with is, you know, if men were still in touch with the transcendent masculine principle that they're meant to embody, then women would neither have yearned for feminism nor have even been capable of taking that path. And instead, we have a world where men no longer know how to lead, women no longer know how to follow, and everybody's walking blindly off a cliff. So how do we fix feminism? The solution is internal, not external. You cannot force the feminine to submit to a degraded and inferior masculine, because that would not reflect the cosmic order. It would be unsustainable. Instead, you have to reclaim the axis around which the feminine naturally orients. feminism would dissolve in the presence of men who are authentically men in the sense that they embody the masculine principle of form, because form is what restores order to matter, to the feminine. So in that sense, men are to blame for feminism in the abstract sense, but they also have the means to end it in the practical sense. And that's not by dragging women backwards into a past that no longer exists, or by exerting brute force, but by cultivating that inner stillness of the masculine principle and allowing women to organically reorganize themselves around it. That's how order returns, and that is how feminism is pulled out of the root.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you said a lot there. I would prefer to stop kind of systematically to get some better understanding, but this sounds at least somewhat Aristotelian or Neoplatonic to me. You're talking about the idea that some things are always in flux and change and other things are not. The essence of higher forms, which are, we're trying to link these kind of higher forms into the idea of forms that we can perceive, which are in a constant state of decay. In this case, I think that you're making the claim that our ontology of men is in a state of decay itself because we have abandoned what it means to be ontologically men, and therefore women are attempting to fill the void by necessity. Do I kind of have that at least close?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
I think you've got the gist of it.
Yeah, the gist of it. Okay. So
if there's anything you didn't understand, we can discuss it.
Yeah, there's a bunch,
problem.
but I just want to make sure that I get the gist and steelman the argument correctly, steelman what it is that you're saying correctly, because otherwise responding to it does us no good.
Yeah.
So when you said the cosmic order, that I would like clarification on. I don't think you actually told me what the cosmic order is. What is it exactly?
So that would, to some extent, that is non-different from God. I mean, you could read things
like a higher metaphysical realm.
Yeah,
like
yeah, the higher metaphysical realm, but it's like the ultimate ordering principle.
Okay, got it.
It's the law from which everything else flows. So on some plane, the cosmic law, the highest ultimate truth, like that is non-different from God. It flows from God, emanates from a place of pure being.
Okay, so the metaphysical order is a divine cosmic order.
Yeah.
Okay. When you say ontological archetypes, you're basing these archetypes on this other realm in which that archetype is in its perfect state, and then translating it onto whatever this realm is, so that we can be a reflection of that state.
So one of the key things in a key doctrine of traditionalism, and I say traditionalism, but really this is a key doctrine within pretty much all spiritual traditions that adhere to a traditionalist character. And this is the doctrine of the two natures. And that is essentially that there is a metaphysical realm of being, of spirit, which you could say like the real world, right? And then there's the lower physical realm of becoming and matter. And these are two fundamental principles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're mapping these here. So do you take the Platonic idea that these realms are separate, or the Aristotelian ideal that they're the same, and that these kind of forms of what is masculine are a reflection of what's already here, or they come from somewhere else?
Okay, so the polarity between, we could say the masculine and the feminine, being and becoming, spirit and matter, however you want to conceptualize it, it's a fundamental polarity. It is this polarity that defines the structure of all of manifestation, because manifestation arises in the contact between those two things. You cannot have any, can't have any life without them. Like it would, you just can't. You can't have something that's all matter.
So you're really talking about the news.
Right. Think of it being like you have a dead matter and like a light of spirit comes and infuses it, and now it's alive, right? Something like that. So there is a way in which they are.
In which these things are melded together. It's not coming from here to here. They are intricately linked. You cannot have one without the other. The reflections, the state of decay is a reflection of the state of purity of the actual form itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I got a lot of this at least. And then just to make sure I'm clear on this, men abandoned this higher form, the spiritual center, And when man ceases to embody that form, there's no more stable axis, you said. And so women, of course, will rise to fill this in, right? Okay. So I think I've gotten a lot of this clarified so that I understand it. So I would give you, this is my argument back. Just kind of granting that even all of this is true, I still actually don't think it makes sense. And here's why. You left something in there which is key, a key linchpin to your worldview, which I think I can falsify pretty quickly. You said force is unnecessary. Force is unnecessary. Now, the thing that's really interesting about this is how do men abandon what makes them masculine and the part of their ontology, which is so key to their ontology, which is force itself. So, for instance, let us assume for a moment that women all collectively tomorrow go to men and demand that men let them do X thing. Let's say all of them together, united, showed up to do this. I don't know how many that would be, 3.5 billion, something like this, right? Maybe closer to 4, I don't know, but at least 3, I would say. They say, we want to do this thing. It's this really stupid thing. I don't know what it would be.
Like feminism?
Yeah, well, I mean, even worse. Like, I don't know. They want to swim out to the middle of the ocean with logs to build a giant boat or something stupid like that. And men say, okay, go ahead, right? Are they vacating their duty? No.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, I think that would follow, that they would be vacating their duty. How could they stop them?
Well, I know where you're going with this because I know you like your force doctrine.
No, I mean, honestly, how could they stop them?
They could stop them with force.
How else could they?
By being the kind of men where the women don't want to swim out into the middle of the ocean to get away from them.
But they're not swimming out in the middle of the ocean to get away from the men, the hypothetical. They just collectively want to do this stupid thing.
Why do they want to do this?
Why they want to do it is irrelevant. They do want to do it. And so if it's the case that they want to do this thing collectively, and it is the case that they do, and men simply allow them to, you would consider this a vacation of the ontology of men, them losing the axis of what makes them them in their purest form ontologically. Okay, that follows to me. Mm-hmm. What I need from you, though, is to tell me how men, if they said no, and women said we're going to do it anyway, can stop that absent force.
The fact that the women are saying they're going to do it anyway is already indicative of the fact that the man has lost that stable center. He's no longer the point of orbit.
But how could they stop it?
They could stop it with force. I'm not saying that force
is there any other way that you could tell me that they could? What other way?
Breathe life into your pond with a power air pond aerator. This aerator operates quietly while circulating large amounts of water. The cabinet is made of powder-coated steel to protect against force seasons of weather. Access the compressor easily with a hinge lid built with a locking arm to prop the lid safely. Disperse dissolved oxygen throughout the water with weighted diffuser stations. Installation is made easy with the self-sinking design. Air is pushed to the pond bottom where the diffusers release a powerful stream of bubbles to the surface, drawing water upward. Improve conditions for your fish and your pond with a power air pond aerator.
Once men have deviated away from that central axis, then all they're really left with is force. Force is kind of a degraded version of that type of masculinity. It's a sign of the degradation. So
if this is the case, if women go to men to collectively do stupid action, and men allow them to, right? Women make the demand that men do allow them to. If you take away from the ontological categorization of force, things can be done absent force, I actually don't understand how you could stop women collectively from doing fucking anything that they decided to do. Your only claim here is, well, women just wouldn't want to. Well, that's nice to say, right? However, there's all sorts of social conditionals which they could absolutely want to do all sorts of things that would be really bad for them to collectively do. And I don't actually understand how you would stop them absent the idea that men, as part of their ontological being itself, have access to force to stop them.
So, sorry, can you parse that down into a single question? I'm not sure which you want me to answer.
So if I let you do a stupid thing, you're saying that I'm abandoning my duties.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to that. I think it's important to distinguish the fact that when we're talking about the realm of the ideal, that it is an ideal. Mm-hmm. That there's no expectation that it be reflected perfectly into materiality.
Of course not.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it can't.
Yeah, it can't be.
I get that.
There's always an imperfection in that. So, you know,
but that's actually where my problem comes in. My problem comes in with this. Wants to do something stupid, right? And you let them do something stupid. When I look at what you consider the virtues of men, isn't one of these virtues of men, or the form of men, the very idea that if you want to do something stupid, thus taking the accountability and consequence for the stupid thing you do, isn't it actually better that we let you do that stupid thing? Won't you inevitably, isn't that the most masculine thing? Like, won't inevitably women come back after going and swimming out in the middle of the ocean to build their stupid boat, and they realize it doesn't work, actually have to call on men and say, we really did something really fucking stupid here? Isn't that the best way, in fact, for you to allow women in the most masculine way to accept the thing that they all seem to reject, which is accountability?
So I think it does actually matter why they want to do something like this.
Yeah, and then the feminism was social conditioning, right?
Sure. I'm not a pro-feminist. It's a problem. We do agree on that. The reason I think it's important to understand, like, why do they want to go and do this stupid thing? Is it just because that's their nature?
Because
people would say it's the nature of women to go do stupid things.
I would give that a descriptor I think that we can agree to. So descriptively, are not immune from doing really stupid shit as a collective any more than women are immune from doing really stupid shit as a collective. The distinction that I would see in the whole, I think I see in your worldview, which is so obvious to me, is the difference is that you give an allowance for accountability to men, but no allowance of accountability for women. And so what you've done here is you've displaced as part of the masculine roles, the perfect form of man, that man, if they're acting in their role, right, then that's perfect. But if they're acting exit their role, there's zero accountability for women. They're doing it as a condition of men failing, right? However, if men exit out of that role, did they just decide to do that for funsies? Like, if men decided that they didn't want to be in the role of the perfect man, did they collective? Who's making that determination for them, since women can't make it for themselves?
So I think this kind of, I might be misunderstanding you here. So if I start explaining it and it's just like not really resonating with where your question is going, feel free to stop me. But when you say accountability, I assume you're kind of referring to agency.
Well, no, I guess to simplify this, it's like this. When woman steps out of her perfect form, according to your worldview, right, it's because men are not providing the access to perfect form for them to follow. You say we should be asking the question why it is that women themselves are refusing to follow this form because men have vacated it, right? And we can see clearly that the reason is because men have exited their form. But what would be the cause of men exiting that perfect form is my question.
Okay, I understand what you're asking. So how is it that men vacate their spiritual center?
Yeah, since women only seem to be able to do this based on men doing that, yeah, how do men do that?
Okay, so and this is why I say I can't point the finger at men and be like, it's your fault, because I do see it as a natural process. So,
are you sure your tax expert is right for you? Switch to TurboTax Full Service.
You'll be matched with a TurboTax expert and get real-time updates on their progress, and you get your best guaranteed. Switch to TurboTax Full Service.
Whether you're looking for service on your existing garage door or opener, or you need a replacement, call Dave's Garage Doors, where our dedication to old-fashioned value and workmanship ensures your complete satisfaction. On each visit, we'll completely check your system and make any minor repairs and adjustments. For any make or model, trust Dave's Garage Doors, serving the Portland, Salem, Vancouver area since 1981. We're big enough to count, but small enough to care.
Another one of the doctrines common to traditionalist cultures and belief systems is a cyclical view of time. So it's not just point A to point B, right?
Nothing
it's
new under the sun.
Repeat of cycles. And part of that is entropy, like the decline of the golden age into the dark age.
Yeah.
And this is a natural and necessary process of the functioning of the cosmos. And so by extension, that is reflected in the quality of men. They naturally do degrade like this. They naturally decline away from that center.
Wait.
Their fault.
That's contradicting. So what you're saying now is something totally contrary to what you were saying before.
What's the
I'll show you the contradiction. You say this is men's fault because they're vacating this thing, right? And so it's a violation of their ontology. Then you go on to make a claim that due to the cyclical nature of how ontology itself works, they must vacate. So what you're actually saying is that their very being is doing exactly what they're supposed to do, which is to be involved in the cycle of endless decay. So they're actually following their ontology, aren't they, by vacating it, by this view?
They are abandoning it in the sense that, okay, so I kind of present to people a sort of simplified version of traditionalism just because it's too complicated to get into the multiple different stages of it. But suffice it to say, you have solar man, heroic man, right? This is the man who is occupying his center. The next level below, you have the lunar, you have the plane of woman, the plane of becoming. But below that, you have the telluric phallic man. And this is the man who has been reduced to the nature of woman because he has vacated his center. So now it kind of comes into talking about, like, are we talking about men collectively or are we talking about men individually?
Well, do you consider ontology natural?
Well, do you want me to answer the previous, finish answering the previous
Well,
question?
I wanted the point of clarification. Is ontology natural?
What do you mean by natural in this sense?
So I guess let's see if we can pull up a philosophical definition so neither of us talk past each other. So let's see, natural in philosophy. Let's see. A set of things which are subject to the normal workings of the laws of nature.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so then ontology would definitely be that, right?
Yeah, I think we can agree on that.
Okay, so then this is the contradiction that I would actually ask you to reconcile without giving a lengthy explanation about the tangential portions. If that is the case, and we agree that that is what ontology is, and you said that this is cyclical, then this would mean that it's actually part of men's nature to vacate the very thing that you say they shouldn't be vacating, right?
Yes, in the sense that it presents the ultimate test to masculinity. So part of the reason for the lengthy explanations is that I recognize that this paradigm is quite far outside of the typical modern paradigm, and that there's a lot of terms and concepts that are unfamiliar to people. So I'm prepared to explain all of these things, but
and I'm happy to have those explanations.
I think what you're seeing as holes are maybe just gaps in the understanding of the fuller picture. So I'm kind of trying to flesh that out for you.
I'm not sure that they are. The thing is that can you agree with me that many people, especially in the course of discourse or debate, they often use obfuscation tactics in order to go into bloviating, lengthy explanations about things which are actually tangential to the question which is being asked. Right now, we're just establishing a baseline for what ontology even is, and if ontology is natural. and if it is the case that ontology is natural by your definition, these cycles, which are also natural, or at least appealing to nature by their very nature of saying cycle, is saying that men's ontology is designed to be deteriorated. It's designed to deteriorate, right? That's what it's designed to do inside of these cycles. So I'm not sure how you can make the set piece of displacing what is ontologically a man with the idea which is ontologically man is designed to decay, and therefore this is an inevitability, and then claim that they're going outside of that ontology. That's what I need reconciled.
Okay, so are you clear on the whole the necessary entropy of materiality, that we live in a fallen age, essentially, that we cannot expect the ideal to be perfectly reflected, especially in this age?
Totally agreed, but that would also be an ontological claim, right? Sure. So if these are all ontological claims, you have to remember that what you're claiming here is men are stepping out of their ontology. This is the problem with the argument. When you say men are stepping out of their ontology, it means they were not meant for this under their state of being. The contradiction is when you say that, well, part of their ontology is to step out of this through the degradation, which is part of ontology itself. That's the part that is bizarre to me, that I don't understand.
Okay. I will try to explain in a way that you do understand, and if you still don't, we will try again.
Okay.
So you accept
the way you see an idea in your mind and shape it into something that could only come from you. This is how website creation should be. Wix Harmony, the new way to create.
Are potbelly wraps really delicious, or are they just a lighter option?
Yes.
Are they low in carb or high in protein?
Yes.
And any sandwich can be a wrap?
Yes.
We're giving the world a better wrap. Potbelly, we bring the hot.
the state of the entropy, the decline. So how do you get a new golden age? The Kali Yuga is what we are said to live in. It's an age when Shiva, the masculine principle, is asleep. The Shakti, the feminine reigns. She's dancing uncontrolled. How do we get to a new golden age? Well, the doctrines generally tell us that this requires a violent reaction of the masculine principle against itself to reestablish order. And so, while it may be a natural process for men collectively to decline in this way, as it is for everything in materiality, on an individual level, men can still make the choice to reclaim that within themselves. You don't have to fix all of society, you just need to fix yourself and pull others into your orbit. Now, if men did this on a collective scale, we'd be in a much better position. We wouldn't be living in the Kali Yuga. But as a general rule,
this is circular though. Like, so because you're making so what you're doing is making an ontological claim within an ontological claim. You're saying, look, the very ontology of men, the very being of men is speculated by you to be degrading in its very nature.
Well, it's not speculated by me. This is I don't claim any ownership.
Well, it is
over
for the purpose
ideas.
of the debate. It's just for the purpose of the debate. I'm not saying that these are all your original ideas. I'm just saying speculated by you at least for the purpose of the debate. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Not that you own every idea that's ever been, before, or me, right? Many people have referenced forced doctrine long before I ever got to it. Or at least, I just gave it a name and a place. But the thing is I guess what I'm alluding to is the circularity here, which is so bothersome to me, is the idea that when you talk about the degradation itself of men, you're also saying that's part of their nature, but it's also part of their nature to reject it, right? Okay, that's totally fair. It's part of their nature. They can reject it, or they can not reject it, or whatever. But you're saying they're going to get there no matter what, because it's part of a cycle. It's part of a cycle of what they do, right? My question.
That's not quite what I'm saying.
Well, I guess my ultimate thing that I'm leading to here, so that we can skip maybe the perception of circularity and we're not caught on this forever, is can women be responsible for men stepping out of that role?
There is a way we could make that argument, in the sense that woman kind of represents the baseline in materiality. Like that is her natural domain in a way that it is not so for men. Materiality is much more suited to the nature of woman because woman is related to matter. She exists in materiality with ease. Man does not, however. Having to be in materiality is kind of like, and this is how he starts to decline away from his center, because, well, now we're putting being into becoming, and the nature of that, its natural partiality, is to try to enslave and subsume that principle, the masculine principle. And so man, in his illusion in materiality, he starts to prefer to indulge his senses rather than seek transcendence. He wishes that he too could exist in this sensory realm of becoming with the same ease that women do. But he can't, because he's not a woman. That's not his nature, fundamentally. So every moment he spends kind of bathing in these like corrosive waters, as they're called, of earthly pleasure, this does violence to his masculine center. It will not turn him into a woman biologically, but it will eventually destroy him through an ongoing dissolutive process unless he takes up.
Because this argument should be reversed then. The argument shouldn't be that men are responsible for feminism. It should be that women are responsible for the downfall of men.
No, I have to disagree with that.
Well, here, I'll just lay it out the best way I can. I can't give you a formal syllogism off the top of my head, but I can at least give you, I think, a pretty good argument here. The idea is that women's nature is materialistic in its own nature, and that men become envious of them being able to be part and parcel of said nature. And that is what causes them to abandon whatever their center is as men, right? Then you would be making essentially the same argument to me that I would be making back to you, which is, okay, let's just grant that this is the case. Let's just grant it, for the sake of argument. You're saying that men, if they were not devoid of this nature of what makes them man, if that did never happen, women would never do this to begin with. But then on the flip side, of the second end of your mouth, you say, well, it's the very material nature of women, which men begin to envy and want to be a part of, that causes them to abandon, well, maybe that's not the right word, but it's the same thing I'm saying. They want that thing, right? And so because they want that thing, they're abandoning their nature because women are abandoning theirs, essentially, is what you're saying. It sounds like your argument should be in reverse here.
No, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Okay. So it's not a matter of envy. It's just a matter that when you are submerged in the sensory world, that this is what your consciousness is largely linked to, right? You experience the world through your senses. It's very easy to become attached to those sensory pleasures. Food is a big one for people. Sex, video games, sleeping too long, things that make them materially comfortable. We are all naturally inclined to seek that, but it doesn't do violence to femininity the way it does to a man's masculinity. And so what you then have is an inversion of the hierarchy, where man, who should have been self-sufficient, the source of his own life, having this inner stillness, being unperturbed by the sensory realm. This is what it means to be the unmoved mover. He rests in rectitude. Things that are external to him do not pull him away from his center. But once he allows that to happen and he starts to degrade, now he becomes inferior to woman. She's just the baseline. He's now acting as a woman, but not being a woman. He's trying to exist in her world the same way that she does. It's not a matter of envy. It's just, this is just natural that people would be drawn to attach and identify to the sensory realm. Does that make sense? I feel like I think I can steel man. Confusing.
I actually think I can steel man what you're saying. You're saying it's a natural part of the female condition to be drawn towards a more materialistic, and I would even perhaps a pampered lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Whereas men, it's their role to not be drawn to those things. So if women are drawn to those things, the catastrophe on society is not nearly as brutal as the catastrophe to society if men begin to take up those ontological roles where they're focused mostly on materialism.
Right. It's kind of, woman is just being woman. She's acting according to her nature, and women's ethics are not the same as men's ethics.
No more stale bread or dry cereal. Give your feathered friends a well-balanced diet with Natural Waterscape's waterfowl feed. Packed with niacin and key nutrients, your waterfowl will have improved circulatory and nervous systems, as well as proper digestion. This uniquely formulated feed is designed to float in the water for over an hour, improving eating conditions for the birds and giving you more time to enjoy your waterfowl. Give your ducks, geese, and swans exactly what they want and need with Natural Waterscape's waterfowl feed.
What's the secret to peak health? Going micro with Loom! Micro habits, micro wins, even microdose GLP-1s.
Micro? I can do micro.
With Loom, we all can!
I'm doing it. I'm going micro.
I can do micro.
It's micro season, baby! Micro changes, big results. Get started at noom.com. Do not micro poop on my shoulder.
Which I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say women should behave according to men's ethics, but then not act like men, or vice versa, right?
Okay, so I'm willing to grant all of that. Now that we're clear that I've still manned the position the correct way, it seems to me like if this is thrown out of balance too badly, right? That what confuses me is this. If men decided tomorrow to utilize force in order to correct this imbalance, what would ever be a more practical way than that?
Well, it would be practical, yes, but it is not coming from that authentic masculine center. So it becomes a LARP. And this is what
this is our dispute first, is that I don't believe that violence or force is disconnected from the state of being for man. I think that you conveniently leave that out so that you can hold accountability only over men, while at the same time demanding that they not use force to realign these ontological distinctions, which is very clear to me that they could just do.
I'm not saying they should never use force or that it's not ever warranted. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying relying on force when you have not redeveloped that center is inorganic. It is still in violation of a cosmic order, and feminism will rear its head again.
Well, then how are Muslims wrong? Then I mean, how are Muslims are essentially using force to realign the very masculine center that you're demanding that men do.
They do not have a masculine center. They are very phallic men, and they use force in order to create a society to minimize their temptations to the sensory as a way to avoid having to master.
You just got them saying that men at their ontological center are not supposed to be driven towards materialism. That's what leads to their downfall. And so we take Muslims who displace themselves from materialism on purpose, and you consider that a non-masculine trait. Makes no sense. And on top of that, you haven't actually demonstrated how it would be. Hang on, let me finish. If Muslims utilize force doctrine in order to move women into compliance, and women are complying, how could they be displaced from this version of masculinity that you perceive? I don't even understand that.
Okay, so let's say, well, not let's say, because it's true, I have a chocolate addiction, okay? So if I decide chocolate's not good for me, I should stop eating chocolate, and I just stop buying it anymore, have I really conquered my habit? No, I just removed the temptation. The real test is whether somebody can put a plate of chocolate in front of me and I can just resist eating it and not be bothered by it and not be distracted by it. That's where the mastery of self comes in.
The forms, according to you, are imperfect. They're imperfect reflections. So if this is the case, then this means man's always going to be tempted, no matter what, by these various material things. How would it not be the most masculine thing under this, or at least what we can do under the decay of these forms, to displace those temptations? That not only that would go in reconcile with logic itself.
The temptation is not the same as actually mastering the temptation. And the prescription that every wisdom tradition has given for this problem is ascesis. It is self-mastery. It's an inner mastery. And in many cases, what is prescribed is not to avoid the temptation, but to deliberately arouse it within himself.
Taxes was chasing updates. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert, doing it all for you, so you can chase this feeling. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax.
When a company makes customer satisfaction the #1 goal, everything else just falls into place. That's why when you rely on Dave's Garage Doors, you can always expect top-notch work at a fair price. Serving Metro Portland, Vancouver, and Salem since 1981, we're your trusted source for everything from residential and commercial garage door installations to repairs. Choose from wood, steel, and carriage-style doors. Just let us know what you're looking for today.
Deliberately stoke that heat so that it creates an even greater challenge for him to overcome, and by doing so strengthens his masculinity the same way that steel is strengthened by
And let's look at some of the methodologies to do that. One of the biggest methodologies used by mystics to do this is to displace people away from their temptation for elongated periods of time as they learn self-control, and then place them around those temptations again to test them. So essentially, they're taking the material aspects in which they would be the most drawn to, just like you do with chocolate, displacing it from you so that you can learn to live without chocolate, and then placing the chocolate in front of you after you've learned how to not live with it for X amount of time so that you master the idea of not being dependent on chocolate. Mystics have done this for thousands of years. It's been a prescription, in ancient Stoics talked about this, and how to displace.
On an individual level, you could do that.
On a macro level, they did this. On a macro level, this was done inside of these societies to displace the things which you are drawn to. So, let's take Muslim society, a great example of this. If you displace alcohol, let's say, from the entirety of your society for an elongated period of time, you agree with me, the addiction to alcohol is going to drop to next to nothing. When you reintroduce alcohol to a society which knows exactly what its effects are and has learned to get by without it for, let's say, 100 years or 60 years or 70 years, don't you agree with me that those men are going to be less prone to moving towards alcoholism? That's how you learn mastery, yeah?
No, I don't agree with that at all.
Oh, okay. So you think that you learn mastery by giving heroin addicts heroin and saying good luck?
No, but I don't think a heroin addict has the right personal equation for an ascetic path in the first place.
But your entire worldview here is stating that the thing in which you, in your case chocolate, that you're addicted to, displacing that from you is a non-assisting contribution to your mastery of not wanting to eat it. And I think that that's actually quite stupid and makes no sense at all.
If my goal was just to simply stop eating chocolate, like for health reasons or whatever, never going to happen, but let's say that was my goal.
No, it's to master you.
Then removing it would work. But if my goal is simply that I want to strengthen my own sense of self-discipline, then I wouldn't get rid of it. I would put it in front of me every day, and I would test my
But
will
then
with
you
it.
would be going against the very concepts and core beliefs of the very ascetic, the very priestly men and shamans that you would be referencing. I can give you 100 prescriptions right now for how it is that ancient societies took things and made them taboo or displaced them from their own societies in order to control or curb some problem which was happening, which was materially based. And then after said thing was reintroduced, they did not have the same exact problems with it, or even any of the same problems with it. Why? Because a form of mastery is understanding the pathway to victory, right? It's the same idea. If it is the case that I want to get really ripped, I'm going to come up with a game plan for how to do that over 10, 20 months, something like this. Not over 2 weeks. That would be absurd. That's going to require all sorts of new habit-changing, habit-forming things, right? Which after those are developed, you can then utilize those for whatever that mastery is. I think it's actually an absurd position to say that you cannot master these things absent displacing them. I would say that that would be the crux of your entire argument, honestly. Yeah, well, I appreciate the conversation. Hopefully we can keep it good faith. I did request a moderator, that way...
Yeah, just playing some Minecraft right now. Kind of boring game.
I had a crazy idea. We were surprised that no one had done it before.
Success doesn't follow a formula, and neither do you.
Who knew that dancing with dogs could actually become my career?
Planning ahead.
I knew that the experience was going to start when people go into the website.
Or playing it by ear.
I saw the opportunity and built my own online empire.
Always moving forward.
Our website is the core of everything.
Your website, your journey. Succeed your way.
When you push yourself as hard as I do, you need to have good habits. That includes staying ahead, keeping healthy, and taking my car to Katie, where they respect my standards and my time. And their ultimate wash holds up to all that my car goes through. High quality, no compromises, and no appointment needed. In other words, Katie doesn't cut corners, and that's a habit worth keeping. Katie Car Washes, for a shine like new.
Calling all the dancing queens. You can dance. It's Mania, the ABBA tribute. February 3rd, Elsinore Theater. Don't miss this amazing tribute to the influential Swedish supergroup as they perform all their hits. Mania, the ABBA tribute. Incredible! February 3rd, Elsinore Theater. Good night! Get tickets at eTix.
Rumble Premium from Warehouse Jimmy on Rumble. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today, like I said, we're going to do something a little bit crazy here. It's a special Saturday. We were just talking about Rumble. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite YouTubers, he goes by the name of Tyler Oliveira. I think some of you know Tyler Oliveira. He's on the ground doing crazy independent journalism on the ground. He's uploaded a video about Indians invading Canada and taking over Canada. The Indians allegedly are taking over Canada. And so it's a 25-minute long video. We are going to watch this video together on Rumble. So we're going to wrap up the YouTube segment and we're going to transition over to Rumble and we're going to watch this Indian-Canadian takeover on Rumble exclusively. So folks, we're going to wrap up on YouTube. If you're dipping out on YouTube, thank you everyone for tuning in. However, we're going to continue the show for maybe another hour on Rumble, and we're going to talk about the Indian takeover of Canada. It's happening, allegedly. So everybody, hop on over to Rumble. My name is Matt Morris TV on Rumble. Matt Morris TV on Rumble. Rumble, Matt Morris TV. We're going to start watching that here in about 5 minutes. Hop on over, folks. I'll see you over there. And if you're not hopping over, then I'll see you later this evening for the second live show this evening. So thank you, everybody. I'm wrapping up on YouTube now. We're going over to Rumble, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, what is this thing growing off my face?
All right. Rumbler is...
Ugh. Great. Data plays it.
I
Nice.
just built a budgeting app for Space 44. Nina just built an app.
Yeah, it's fun to build stuff. I think.
It was one of the earlier shows of this series. He's a character.
It takes so long.
Actually, it's a she.
I'm still a noob at this game.
Something else.
There's a lot to learn.
Maybe I'll bring the squirrel back to one of the later shows and let you see her. There we go. Annette and I have raised her since she was just a tiny little critter. Didn't even have her eyes open. There. See, and we have a great big tree now. That easy. Big old tree. I'm getting carried away now. Let's really have some fun. I'll go back into all these dark colors. Just pull them out here. Maybe there's a whole clump of trees. That's right here. I don't know. Wherever. But push that brush. Bend it. Don't let it slide. Look here. If it slides, see, that's what you're going to get. We don't want that. Look at the difference. See that nice open leafy effect? That's what we're looking for. That's what'll make your painting special. The only time we use a sliding effect that I can think of right now is when we're making like sawgrass that lives in the water.
Need more access.
There. Sometimes we're painting scenes from Florida, Louisiana, etc. You have that beautiful grass that grows in the water. And that's the way you make it. There. See, that easy, you can block in a whole forest, basically. And you begin seeing things
this is almost a natural place for a little path to live. We'll think about this. We may put a path in there. What the heck? What the heck? Now, in this style of painting, you really don't have to make big decisions, and you look at your work and you decide what do you see in there, and you take that and work with it. And that's where you really have your fun. That's where you really become creative. Let's take a fan brush here. I'm going to take both sides through some brown and then take one side through titanium white. There we are. So we have white on one side and brown on the other. See there? Okay. Now then, you have to make a decision right now. Where's our light coming from? If you're right, you'll probably find that it's easier to have the light coming from the right. So put the light side on the right side. Hard to see it one now. And just pull down. And we can put a whole tree trunk in there in one stroke. Both sides. The highlight and the shadow in one stroke. See there? Sneaky, huh?
We're gonna go plant all these trees.
Maybe over here. Maybe there's several trees over here. So you decide how many trees live in your clump or group. You decide. And maybe you can't see the entire trunk of all of them. Maybe you only see that much of that one. Because maybe there's a big bush. I don't know. Just use your imagination. But you don't want every one of them to be exactly the same. You don't want each one of them to be perfectly straight. It becomes very boring very quickly. Maybe there's a limb here on this one. So just whatever you want.
I'm gonna plant all these trees.
Maybe over here you can see a little team. Gotta have small trees, but you never have any big ones. Okay. Now then, today let's use a 1-inch brush. And we'll dip it into a little bit of the liquid white, and then we'll go through color. We're going to start with yellow. I'll reach up here and get a little bit of black. Tell you what, a little red. This is going to be a fall scene. We need a lot of beautiful colors. Here's some yellow ochre. Put your sunglasses on. This one's going to be a bright one. Just pull this brush in one direction, like that. And once again, see the rounded corner? That's what we're looking for. Put that rounded corner to the top. Let's go right here. Go slightly above the dark. And very gently, begin laying in your shape of your tree. Now remember, this tree is not flat. It has roundness this way as well as this way. So think about shape and form when you're building your tree.
I spelled him so high.
Throw a bunch of color on it. Because the old tree will come out looking flat as
all my items are
getting some character. Let each tree be an individual. They're like people. They want to be individuals. Now sometimes when you have fall scenes, maybe Jack Frost doesn't get all of it. There's still a little green here and there. Some plants never turn colors. So let's have one of those right here. So that's a nice one that has a little green in it.
Just drop so much.
I think he's got a little friend that lives here behind this bush. We don't know. But once again, I know you get tired of hearing it all the time. Do one bush at a time. Don't be in too big a hurry. I'm going to leave some of these dark things sticking up back here. It'll be nice. I'm going to go into a yellow ochre. A little bit of cad yellow. Let's go up here to this tree. Maybe up here in this tree. Maybe. Yeah. There's some beautiful colors up in here too. Once again, think about shape in this tree. So important. There. Think about form. There, right across the trunk. Because you don't see the entire trunk in a tree, normally. In nature, there's just about exceptions to every rule, but normally you won't see the entire trunk. There we go. Maybe back here there's even a little. We don't know. Let's have a firecracker there. Shoot, let me go into a little bit of alizarin crimson and then the yellow. Alizarin crimson and then some cad yellow. We're gonna make a firecracker right there. That'll be pretty. There. Pull the brush in one direction though. Now maybe right in here lives. Ooh, that's nice. That is nice. There. There he is. Just It just hangs out here around the pond. There. Maybe even a little bright red. Down here. Beautiful little bush. Okay, there's a little bit over in here. There he is. Practice some of this brush though. You would be surprised, probably be amazed at what you can do with a brush like this. I'm going to go into a little bit more of the liquid white. If you have trouble making your colors stick, add a little bit of liquid white or a little bit of pink thinner, but a very small amount of pink thinner. The liquid white now will change your color a little bit, make it brighter. Okay, see, just have a little bit of green there. And we'll go right here. Maybe there's a happy little bush that lives right there. Vary these colors though. In the fall, you have every color that you can imagine. There. Should go and have that green maybe over here. There's a nice little bush. There's right there. There we go. You can begin creating all kinds of effects. Tell you what. Let's go back into our yellow ochre. Maybe I'll grab some bright red. Ooh, that's a pretty one. That's a pretty one. All right. Let's go right up in here. Now, sometimes these big trees have a tendency to scare you. Just remember that large trees are nothing more than clumps of bushes put together. It's just a whole group of little small bushes that got together and made a big tree. And work on individual shapes inside of this tree. Think of it, each limb, for example, is just a bush. Just a little bush that's sticking out there. And don't be afraid to reload the brush often. Probably the biggest mistake made is not thinning the paint enough and not putting enough paint on the bristles. There we go. And if you don't have enough paint, then you have to hit them very hard. It'll just sort of moosh together. There we go. So we can create all those different effects. Just using one
This is a good
brush.
place to plant.
There. And leave some areas open so you have some of these dark things showing through. Let a little trunk show through here and there. All these things are what make your painting interesting. Make it stand out. There. Another little bush down here. Another thing that will help your painting be special. Anytime you have a large clump of trees like this area right in here, you need a dark shadow area. Very dark shadow area. Tell you what, let's go in here. Let's go in here. Take your old 2-inch brush, tap in a little color. And let's just begin laying in the lay of the land here. Little grassy areas, soft little areas. Very soft. Bring this all together. There. We said we might have a little path in here. I think that's an excellent idea. Put in a little bit of these grassy areas. I'll just stop in a little path. See, by changing the angle here, we can create different planes. There we go. So that's like so. But just by tapping, you can create all of these little illusions of all these things that are happening. And by changing the color a little bit, changing the intensity or the brightness of the color, you can create different planes in your painting. Let's take a fan brush. We'll put a little bit of brown on it. Van Dyke, a little dark sand. And let's just begin creating the illusion of a little path. Look at that. Here it comes. Here it comes. And that way you clean up the bottom of all these little things, make them any way you want them. Add a little white to the brush. And then come back in here. There. I like to do this with sort of a rocking motion because it makes it look like the path is sort of worn there in the center. There we go. All right. Come back, add a few little finishing touches wherever we want. Okay, right here. There's another little bush. And you take this brush sideways, push upward, and it'll create all kinds of little grassy looking things, little bushes that live right in here. We'll have them work right down the side, like so. Bring all this together. All right. Now then, with just a clean knife, all I'm going to do is just go in here and scrape in the indication of a few little sticks and twigs and all these little happy things. These also help create that illusion of depth and distance in your painting. There. Okay. And we take our liner brush and go into a little bit of the brown. But we want this paint to be thin like ink. And let's go up there. Maybe there lives some little sticks and twigs and just little extra things all over here, like that. Okay, tell you what, I think this one's about finished. Let's take a little of the red. Let's come right in here. And we'll sign this one. Certainly hope you enjoyed it. It's a very nice little painting. I think you'll enjoy doing this one. And from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy painting and God bless, my friend. I'm so glad you could join me today. I've got a couple of my little friends here, a couple little baby squirrels. Today I have a little gray squirrel right here. It's a little gray squirrel. And the other one's a fox squirrel. They're just little babies, 3 or 4 weeks old. Aren't they precious though? I just adore these little critters. I just thought I'd share them with you before we get started here. Hi guy. Maybe the color's doing good. There's something else. There. They are absolutely precious. As you notice though, the fox squirrel is much larger than the little gray squirrel. And that's the same way they'll be when they grow up. Okay, I guess we have to go to work, guys. Hey, you ready to go to work? Okay. Tell you what, let's start out and run all the colors across the screen that you need to paint along with me. While they're doing that, I'll set these little colors down. Come on, you ready to go? Isn't he precious? Yeah, we gotta go now. Time for me to go to work. Alrighty. Let's go right up here and let me show you what I've already done on the canvas so we'll do a fantastic little painting today. I have my standard old pre-stretched double prime canvas and I've covered the entire canvas with a very thin coat of the liquid white. So it's wet and it's all slick and it's ready to go, and so let's just have fun today. Let's start out today with a little bit of Indian yellow. Let's just do a painting that's fun. I'm going to take a little Indian yellow and just go up here and make little crisscross strokes and start like so. The Indian yellow, as with every color we use, is mixing with the liquid white, and it allows us to literally blend color right on the canvas. Maybe a little yellow ochre right on top of that, right in there, something like that. That's all there is to it. But these little crisscross strokes make it much easier to blend color together than making stripes. So just use little crisscross strokes. Maybe we'll use a little alizarin crimson. We'll just use some warm colors back here in the background. Alizarin crimson, it's a beautiful, beautiful, warm, reddish color. There. About like that. And we'll just let that blend right in. Just allow the colors to blend together. All right. Now, I think we can get away with it. Let's go into a little bit of phthalo blue. The phthalo blue is so much stronger than the crimson that we won't even have to clean the brush. We can just go right into it. And let's go up in here. Let's start on the very top, making little crisscross strokes again. Little X's and we'll paint the entire remainder of the sky with a little bit of blue. Just bring it down to the crimson and stop. Once again, the blue is so much stronger than the crimson. It'll just eat up all the crimson in your world. There, maybe in our world here and there, there's a little stringy cloud that lives out here. So just tap in a little cloud shape wherever you want it. It doesn't much matter. Little clouds are free. They just float around, have a good time. Maybe there's a little one right there. I don't know. You make the decision. Now, we'll take a clean, dry brush, and we just blend all this together. Very gently. 3 hairs and some air. Just blend it together. And that easy. We have a fantastic little sky. Tell you what, while we have that brush, it's got a little blue on it. Let's just take, maybe we'll have a little water down here. Then again, maybe we won't. But let's just put a little blue in to see what happens. Because we don't care. As you know, we don't make mistakes. We just have happy accidents. So anything that happens here, we can live with it. We don't care. That's the beauty of this. Or the joy of it. There. About like that. That's all we're looking for. All right. Now I get to clean the brush. That's really the most fun part of the whole technique. Just shake off the excess. And beat the devil out of it. That really is fun. I have people that write and say they have no desire to ever paint, but they just went out and bought them a brush so they can beat it because it makes them feel better. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's take a little black, a little bit of blue, and be right back. Get a little white, mix them together. I'm looking for a light color, predominantly blue, maybe a little lighter. It's our world, so we can make it any shade we want. Cut off a little roll of paint, about like that. And maybe, yeah, way back in here, there's just a little hill, little mountain, far away, quiet little mountain. He just hangs around back here and has a good time all day. There, I like that. We can take a 2-inch brush, grab that color, and pull it. Pull it. Because that canvas is wet, you can move color here. You can make it move. Now, just tap it. I want to miss the base of this. Just right enough. Add a little white to it. I want it to be very soft. Very, very soft. It's like it's sort of floating around in the mist far away. There. That's about all we're looking for in that one. Maybe there's several different planes. I like a lot of distance in painting, so I have a lot of planes in the paintings. There. Let's take Prussian blue, some black, alizarin crimson. Put a little Van Dyke in there too. A little Van Dyke brand, doesn't matter. About like that. Pull it out flat. Get our little paint. And maybe right under here somewhere, maybe there's a little mountain that lives right there. Just a nice little mountain, a little friendly guy. There. Put in a basic shape. We're only concerned with the top edge. We could care less what's happening anywhere else in this mountain. Once again, grab our 2-inch brush and pull that. I want it to just disappear over there in the mist somewhere. We don't even know where it goes. I don't think we care. It doesn't matter in our world where it goes. There. Now, let's take a little titanium white. I'm going to put the least little touch of bright red in it. Since there's a pink in the sky, maybe there's a hint of pink in our mountain color. A little paint. Let's go up in here and touch. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. No pressure at all. Just let it float. Let it float and play very gently. Very, very gently. Now then, a little bit of white and blue mixed together. I'm using a little bit of phthalo blue in there, a little black in it. little tiny roll of paint. Go back in here. Put the indication of a few little shadows on these little mountains that live back there. That's about all we're looking for. Make sure that brush is clean, dry. Now I want to create mist down at the base. So tap the mountain, following the angles. Most important that you follow those angles that you put in there. Over here, follow this direction. Now, very lightly, just graze it, lift it. That takes out all the little tap marks, blends everything together. Is that easy? That easy. Okay, let's have some fun. And take the fan brush, put a little, same little blue color on it, just a little. Back up in here, maybe at the base of our mountain, just touch. Just touch like that. We don't know where it goes. Now, snap it up. By that, touch. Just give it a quick little upward lift. And a little downward pull. Sorry to say a downward lift, but I guess that's a contradiction of words. And very lightly go across the bottom. I'll make it a little bit darker right at the base so it stands out. Oh yeah, that's better, that's better. Now, a little liquid white on the knife, pull it out flat, and put a little bright red in that too, just enough to give it a little unique pinkish hue. You look real close, have to really look for it though. Now I want a little water line far away. Far, far away. There. Something about like that. There. All right. Let's build a big mountain. Shoot. Going back to that dark color we had. Pull the paint out flat. Once again, our little roll of paint lives right on the edge here. And let's come right up in here. Let's use a bravery test. Maybe, what the heck? There's a big mountain. He lives. Maybe he's got an old jagged arm that sticks out like that. Mountains grow every which way. Have fun with them. They're one of the most interesting and fun things to paint, I think, in this whole technique. And I've painted hundreds of mountains in the many shows that we've made. And you know, people still write and say, do more mountains, Bob. I like the mountains. My favorite. There. But any of these paintings that we do here, if you don't want the mountains out, leave them out. You can do the painting without having the mountain in it. It's no big deal. You can do anything here. Anything that you want to do. Right here. This truly is your world. Right here. Yeah. Okay, I'm just blending that out again. Like so. Maybe let's get crazy. Maybe this. Yeah, why not? Why not? Just use that mountain color. Maybe I just come right across and there's a little lake with me back over there somewhere. Lift up, make it look like little trees right there. See? Easy. You can do this. You can do this. You do not have to be blessed by Michelangelo at birth to be a pretty good painter. You can do this. Maybe let's get crazier. Maybe in our world, maybe there's another little pond here. A little lake. If you want something like that, all you have to do is pull straight down with a little bit of color and then go across just enough to give it a watery sheen. Sometimes you can take a little bit of white. Don't do this too much though, just a little. Put a little, like a little shine on the water. Easy, not too much, not too much. Just enough to give it a nice shimmer. Can overdo. Easy. Because it gets good and you don't want to stop. There. Put a water line right there. We'll just have to decide where all these things live. Okay, we need some highlights on this mountain. Doesn't matter, we just use whatever color we got going here. There. Big mountain. Strong mountain. to have a lot of character. We don't like wimpy little mountains. We like big mountains. Or sometimes we like wimpy mountains. That's all right. Any kind that you want in your world, you can do them here. There. No pressure. I know you get tired of hearing me say that, but over and over again I get letters from people saying I'm having trouble making the snow break on the mountain here. Normally, it's one of two things. You're applying too much pressure, or you're using the paint that's not thick enough. Tell you what, let's have a little shadow back here. You need a very dry paint. I can't say that enough times either. It's most important. It really does make a difference. There, maybe, look here, watch. Maybe there's a little, right there. I don't know. You decide. Little place for the mountain goes to walk around the mountain there. He needs a little place like that. Don't laugh. Yeah. He likes to go on a little Sunday hike, come around the mountain, see what's on the other side. There. And just begin playing with highlights and shadows and adding them in wherever you think they should be. There's one right there. By putting a shadow in it, pops that up, makes it look big, strong. All right. Let's take a 2-inch brush and once again, I want to create the illusion of mist down here. Just by tapping. There. Maybe. Yeah. There we go. There's a big tree that's right down here. Only forest that's right at the edge of this mountain. Now do this in layers if you want to put like there's little tree ranges, and then maybe it comes right on down like that. Whatever. Go back, put another range in. So you can just go on and on and on and create all kind of depth and distance in your world. That's what makes it so fantastic. There are no limits to this. There. Absolutely no limits. You're limited only by your imagination and your willingness to practice. Recently in Daytona Beach, Florida, we had a reunion of all of our instructors, and over 150 instructors came from all over the world. All over the world. Even our first certified Japanese instructor, Misuko, came all the way from Japan to be with us. We had people from Puerto Rico, Canada. Oh, that joy of painting is universal, isn't it? All right. Now, we spent a whole week at Daytona Beach, and we painted together, and we had a good time. Oh, we had a lot of fun. And then we went to Nusanara Beach. All of our instructors went out and painted. The public was invited. We spent a whole day out in the park painting. We all got sunburned. Even my bald spot on top of my head got burned. There, but we had a lot of fun. Okay, we're just wiping the knife on a paper towel here. Let's take Prussian blue, black, brown, alizarin crimson, and throw in some sap green. Well, we got a conglomeration going there. All the dark colors, basically. Let me wipe off the old knife. And you know me. Shoot, I like them trees. Let's do a tree. Use a fan brush, loaded full of color. A lot of paint. A lot of paint. My little squirrels have to have a tree to live in. So let's give them one. Right there. There. Comes a tree. Lives in the fan brush. There they are. Just let them pop right out. Let them pop right out. A little more paint. When you're going over, like here, where there's a lot of paint already on the canvas, you may have to put a little, not much, a little bit of paint thinner on your brush and go through the paint. Because our golden rule, a thin paint will stick to a thick paint. So if you thin this, you can go right over the top of the other without it mixing totally together. And you know, if your doll mixes together, you end up being a mud mixer. And all of us who've painted have mixed a little bit of mud. There. Boy, I'm covering up most of my mountain here. Didn't mean to do all that, but doesn't matter. One more. One more little tree that's right out here. Whatever. Maybe? I know. Sometimes we get crazy here. Maybe this is maybe we're up high looking down. Let's take some of that and pull it over. There's another one. Maybe it comes all the way around. I don't know. Just pick up some of that tree color. There. Let's just fill this in. You could do this with a paint roller, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But it's a super way to practice. Do it this way and you get a little practice. There. Don't waste your strokes. There we are. Now, let's take that brush you made the trees with, the color's still on it, and go right through cad yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow. And because it has blue and black, when we touch that yellow, we get green. Let's go back up in here. And let's put some highlights right on our trees. There they go. Make those little noises.
Oh, death
I'm over
traps
here.
over here.
Just a few. Just a few. Big tree needs some too.
I need to take down this whole
Big
area.
old tree needs some. There. Put back in here too. Just some indications. Now, I know. Change my mind. You can do that. Sure will. Take a little ducks and a little thing that brown, mix them together. We need some big rocks to get back in here. So we just put some little doors in here like that. Where we want it. Take a little white, take a bit of that brown, mix it together with a highlight color and barely touch white and brown, or brown and white. Just we'll put grass over the top, and some of these will show through and they look like little rocks. They're about here. There. Okay. Use a 2-inch brush, tap right into a little of that same color. Just that green, yellow, all those colors. And let's just begin tapping. All kinds of little land areas. Have them come hang right over these rocks. If we don't have rocks here, just let them hang right over. Hang right over. This is where you create the lay of the land, or the way the land flows. Sometimes, look at that, see? Maybe it comes right on down. Not like that. And it creates a whole different plane. Now a little rabbit can hide down in there and look over at us. Yeah. There. All right. There. Just tap though. Don't let the brush slide. Just tap. Just tap. There. Isn't that a super way of making little grassy areas? I like it a lot. I like it a lot. There. Maybe. Yeah, comes right over. Don't touch the bright red line then too. Not much bright red. Just enough to dull the color a little bit. Red and green make brown, so it dulls. There. See there? All kinds of little doers. But now the little rocks still look like they're in there. That's all there is to it. And you can put little highlights. Sometimes I dip the brush into a very small amount of liquid white, because that it brightens the color and it makes it thinner, so it'll stick right over the top. See that little ridge of paint right there? We're pushing. There's one just like it on the brush. So try to get that. Now we'll go up here and use that little ridge of paint. Maybe our light's coming through here. We want to sparkle that edge. See, you can sparkle little parts of it, but don't sparkle it all. If you sparkle it all, then it loses its sharpness too much. Just a little. Just think where light would zing through there and play. Sometimes I even take maybe a little bit of pure white and put on there, just to brighten it, but not very often. Like it. Light's zinging through there, maybe over here be a little brighter. to. Just play with it like that. But this is a very nice little painting. It's very easy. It gives you a lot of practice with just about all the equipment. You get to do the mountains, you get to do all of the little foothills. And if there's a secret to this style of paint, or any style of paint, it doesn't matter. It's just practice. That's all, just practice. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. You can lift up, make it look like some little grassy areas back in there. Wherever you want. Shoot. I think that's about it. That makes a pretty nice little painting. Let's sign this one. Let's take a little paint thinner. Now I use bright red, but you use any color you want. See how thin that is? It's almost like ink. Turn the bristles. I'm still getting a lot of letters saying I'm having trouble signing the painting, making the paint thinner. It's almost like ink. A lot of pigments go up in here. Decide where you want to sign the painting, and all you have to do then, if the paint's thin enough, it will literally just flow right over top of the other paint. And I'm lucky I have a very short name, so it didn't take but a second. And that's about all you have to do. I really hope you've enjoyed not only this painting, but seeing my little squirrels. As I say, I had both a little gray squirrel and a fox squirrel, so you could see the difference between them. So from my little squirrel friends and everybody here at the studio, we'd like to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend.
What the fuck is this? This looks like a natural tree.
Hi, welcome back. Certainly glad to see you today. I thought today we'd do something that's a little bit different. So let's start out and have them run all the colors across the screen that you need to paint while you're with us. While they're doing that, let me show you this crazy thing I've got going up here today. I'm back to my good old black gesso. I love that black gesso. Taking a regular 18 by 24 inch canvas, or any size that you want. And I've just taken a paper towel with black gesso and just sort of daubed all over like that. And just sort of put a design in here. And I know it looks like a bomb went off in there, but hopefully it'll look better before it's over with. Allow the black gesso to dry completely. Now, all of it that has the black gesso on it, I've covered with a thin coat of liquid clear. And over that, I've put a mixture of Van Dyke brown, sap green, and a little bit of Prussian blue, not much blue. And up here it just has liquid white. And when you caught me, I was just finishing up with a little bit of this dark color. It goes right over the black gesso. And all you need is just a thin, even coat. The reason we put the liquid clear on there first is because that way you can put a very thin coat. It's almost like a glaze over the black. If you just try to put solid color on there, you're going to put so much paint that when you put a little white on there, it's almost too bright. So this allows you to do very gentle little things. All right, now just keep using that same old dirty brush and go into a small amount. Let's use a little tiny bit of the phthalo blue, not much, but right on that dirty brush. So I'm just going to mix it with that same color that's on the bottom of the canvas. Don't leave much. And let's go right up here in the sky and see what we have. There. Just little colors, something like that. So we have phthalo blue with the same colors that we have on the bottom here. And we just sort of let it blend together. About like that. We'll come back with a clean brush and blend that a little more. But the color is transparent enough that the black gesso things come through, and it'll give that illusion of a lot of little things happening in the background without you hardly doing a thing. There. This black gesso may be one of the neatest things that I've ever invented. I really hope you like it. It has just about become a standard now in the art world. It was, as they say, you saw it first right here. Enjoy it painting. All right. We'll just bring that right on down. Now let's have some fun. Remember, take a clean brush. And I have several of each one going, so I don't have to spend all my time just washing brushes. You just want to blend this out till it's nice and soft. And all it's doing is mixing with the liquid white that's on the canvas and blending. And you can blend this to any degree of softness that you want. That's about all we need right now. There. The only thing that I'm really sure of in this painting is that I'm going to have a big mass of trees right here in this very dark area. Other than that, I don't really care. You really don't have to make a lot of decisions with this. You just have a general idea of what you want. You need to know the time of year and the time of day for light, and of course if you're doing the winter scene, you want it to look a little cold, summer scene, vice versa, whatever. Without cleaning that brush, I'm going to go right into a small amount of the dark sienna. So I still have all that bottom color and sky color, and I just added dark sienna right onto it. And let's go up in here and just begin picking out some little background things. I don't want a lot of details because it's too far away. There. Just a few little things that are way back in the distance there. There. Sometimes it's sort of nice to take your brush and put it up here and just bend it sideways. And it'll make the indication of little trees that have little arms sticking out. But that easy. Maybe there's another one there. Wherever you think they should be. And all you're doing is just bending the brush. Making a little fan right in there. However many you want. It's up to you. And I don't want to cover up all those little things made by the black gesso that are showing through. Because to me, those are very attractive. Very pretty. There. I want it to be very soft and extremely misty. You can add a little titanium white to your brush once in a while. Very, very little. Smallest amount. Smallest amount. It'll look just like mist laying back there. There. Something like so. I can add a few more darker bushes right in the foreground. Right over the top of the mist. And that mist will act as a separator to keep them apart. There we go. And there's not a great deal of paint on here. There really and truly is a lot of different colors, but there's not a great deal of paint. If you was to scrape that very hard, you'd get very little off of it. Okay, back to our dark scene. Let's go on the other side and do a little bit over in here too. We don't want this one left out. Maybe over here there's one of those sideways trees. And I don't want them to be very distinct. If they're real distinct, you lose that illusion of distance. We'll do things that are very distinct in the foreground. Back here, we only want suggestions. There. Once again, maybe the least little touch of that titanium to create a misty area. Back to some of our darker colors. There we go. Just tap in the indication of some little distant bushes and things that are happening. Now let's go, let me find a knife here, mix up some color. Let's take some black, Prussian blue, some Van Dyke brown, a little satin green, same basic colors that we had before. Alright, let me wipe off the old knife. But the predominant color here is black. Most of it is black. We'll put the other ones in there just to flavor it a little bit. I'm going to just load the brush by tapping it right into the color. Just tap it. Let's go right up in here. We have to make some big decisions. Using just the corner of the brush. Now let's begin just laying in all kinds of very basic little patterns. This is going to be a big clump of trees back here, I think. So, we'll start laying in some very basic little shapes. And because we have that black gesso in there, we have to do very little. Very, very little in the way of putting in our darks. They're already there. In fact, the worst thing we can do is cover all that up. All those little light areas in there will look like light coming right through the tree. That's the reason I put that on with a paper towel rather than a brush. If you put it on with a brush, you just have solid color. And I'm really looking for these little light areas. It'll drive people crazy if they don't know how you did that. That's our secret. Why don't you tell them? Just between you and I. There we go. Down in here, I want that to be quite dark. Like so. Well, that'd be a fantastic place for one of my little critters to live. In the last show, I showed you Steve being introduced to one of my little squirrels. Now, Steve had never played with a squirrel, so I'm going to show you him again while I'm doing this. I'm just going to be putting in some of this little dark area. And we'll show you. This is in my backyard in Florida. And Steve finally got enough nerve up to let the little squirrel jump on him. But isn't he the cutest little devil? I mean the squirrel. Steve's a little big to be cute. When this was made, Steve was, let's see, 24 now. He's 24. He's a short guy, he's 6'5". He calls me Shorty. And then let's take our liner brush, go into some paint there. We'll take a little brown, grab a little white there too. There, nice color. Little brown, little white. Van Dyke dark sand both mixed in here. Hope you enjoy seeing those little critters. Let's draw that to a nice point. Let's go back in here. And here and there and there and here. Let's put the indication. A few little round sticks, trunks, twigs, whatever. Live back in here. I don't want it to be real distinct, but enough that they stand out. There. Maybe a little more white to this one. There we go. A little more paint thinner. Let's have a nice one. That's great. There. Let your hand wiggle and jiggle and make all those little crazy things. I have people write and they tell me they can't paint because their hand shakes a little. Shoot, you have an advantage. Use it. There's no reason that one can't paint. No reason. I have one lady who paints with us, lives in the Boston area, and she's totally blind. And she paints along with us. Just in this thing. That's one fantastic lady. Takes a lot of nerve to do that. And she does it very well. I've seen some of her paintings and you wouldn't believe what she's doing. But not really. So if she can do that, the rest of us don't have any excuse. There. This one's got a little more brown, and it doesn't matter. Just have to hit a little more. However you want. There. Now then, let's take, this brush doesn't have too much on it, we'll just use it. Let's have a little bit of the yellow ochre. Let's be right back. I'm going to do dark sand. I'll put it maybe a little more. There. Okay, yellow ochre. We'll use some Indian yellow for it, so we're leaving some of the bright red. Just load a little bit of color. Just push. You can see how that's that little ridge right there. There's one just like it on the bristles, and that's what we're going to use. We're going to come in here and very lightly. We don't want a lot of color back here. Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect. Just a little. Just a little. Don't overkill. Just enough to make it stand out a little. I want this to be a very subdued, quiet painting back here in the back. A bit more of the dark sand, the yellow ochre, the Indian yellow there. There. See how that works. I'm using just the corner of the brush. I'm not using the entire brush. And this will work with a 1-inch brush, with either one of the round brushes. The oval brush, the 1-inch oval brush will do it just as good. Just whatever your preference is. Practice a little bit with all of them and find the one that works the best for you. And then that's the right brush for the job. There. There we go. There we go. I love to do little paintings like this, especially with this black gesso. It just makes it so easy. So easy.
I
You
know
pointed
idea
out a
what
whole
I'm
clump of
building.
trees there. That easy. Alright. Now maybe, let's see, add the least little touch of the bright red to that. Maybe a little sparkler in there. A little sparkler, but I don't want it too bright.
I have no idea what I'm
The
building.
titanium point. And then we'll come right in here. Oh, there's a little bush. He lives right around here. Just pick him out. There he is. There he is. Darker, 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 down toward the left.
Alright, I'm fucking buried.
Don't let him get too bright. There. Right in with a little touch of the ochre. Just to change his flavor a little.
I want to make
See
crispy.
another one right there. See, these little things that you just drop in at random, all of a sudden begin. They look like little things back in
Well,
there.
I've been playing for 2 hours.